Hi, I'm Alex Redmond, Executive Editor for Metro Magazine, and welcome back to METROspectives. In part two of a two-part conversation, Peter Aczel, GM for Vontas, joins me from the APTA Expo show floor to discuss an exciting announcement that was made at the show. Joining us for the discussion is David Block-Schachter, Chief Business Officer at Transit, and Jonny Simkin, CEO at Swiftly. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
So back on the APTA Expo show floor, Peter, in part one with Vontas, we talked about our your public-private partnership with Fresno and the award, the Innovative Solutions Award. On the show floor, you had teased that you were going to have a big announcement. Can you talk a little bit about what the announcement is?
Yes, absolutely. So we announced last week in preparation for APTA a great, very exciting partnership with Swiftly and Transit to provide an end-to-end integration between our CAD AVL system, Swiftly's service adjustment system, and the Transit app, customer-facing app, to be able to now directly communicate changes in service to the traveling public. We're working with our great customer at MTA Baltimore, all three together, to bring that to the riders and get that implemented. And this is for us and I think the industry, call it a paradigm shift of having three companies with distinct different technologies and best-in-class solutions working together,
Right.
not in silos, to deliver end-to-end integrated solutions to the benefit of a customer.
So you touched a little bit about with Maryland. Is that so? How did the partnership came about? Did Maryland approach you guys to make this happen?
So it was a series of conversations that I think we all first individually had with Maryland,
Okay.
of trying to solve some problems on how can we distribute information to the riding public faster.
Okay.
And it was actually, I think we all three have really good partnerships. They're not just a customer or a partner to us. So it organically came from that. And then I think we started conversations less than 6 months ago.
Yep.
So it also happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys talk a little bit about like how how you're able to integrate together and you mentioned there was conversation. Have you guys mentioned talked before about you guys might work together on something, or how did that work out?
I mean, I think we've known each other for a while, right? The transit industry on the tech side is not that large,
Right.
and I think for us at Vontas, since we started as our own company, one of the big things that we were trying to do is establish an approach where we open up our technology, working with best-in-class partners, focus on our core competencies, which is the CAD AVL, vehicle tracking and dispatch, and create modular solutions that easily integrate with best-in-class partners like Swiftly and Transit so that they can deliver their solutions in collaboration with us. So opening up our platform was critical.
Right. And guys, can you talk a little bit about your company and kind of how your solutions are how they're all integrating with one another?
Yeah, I'm happy to go, and then I'll hand it off to you. Well, first off, thanks for hosting us here. I'm really
thanks.
excited about this. So as you know, Vontas has really made leaps and bounds, I think, on the CAD AVL front and pushing towards more open and modular systems. Swiftly, for almost a decade now, has been powering a data platform that's used now by over 145 transit agencies in 9 countries. And one of the areas that we specialize in is providing highly accurate real-time information for riders. And then when we use our algorithms to produce these more accurate ETAs, it ultimately hits riders through the transit app. And one of the things that we were really excited about through this integration was the ability to take service disruptions that are entered into the Vontas CAD AVL system, translate those directly into our platform where we can understand the context of vehicles going off route, where they're supposed to be going.
Right.
We can update ETAs with that in mind. So as a vehicle goes off route, we can actually factor in the new detour path to all downstream ETAs, and then that leads to a much more accurate rider experience with information that we then pass to Transit App, and I'll let you talk about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at Transit App, about 1 in 10 people in the US and about 1 in 5 in Canada use our app each and every day of people who take public transit. And so it's kind of a responsibility that we have to give them real information. They use apps because they're looking for trust. They're looking for the same thing that you use when you use GPS, which is, on your car. You want to know that you're going to get to where you're going and that you're on the best route. And that's what an app does. And so, it's always been an issue, and it's been an issue for more than a decade since this standard has come out, that once you have a route in place, you can't modify it, you can't change it, you can't do anything about that. And this is all based on standards so that this information can be distributed, whether it comes from Vontas to Swiftly, from Swiftly to Transit, or to Google Maps, or to one of many other players back and forth. It's this whole ecosystem that's supported. And so one of the things that I got really excited about in this project is it kind of redefines and extends an existing standard so that although this is a great partnership between the three of us, it also moves the entire industry forward to something that they haven't done before. Being able to show detours in real time in an app in a standards-based way. This isn't just the first time this has ever happened in the US. This is the first time that this has happened in public transit as a whole.
Right.
And that's really what people need because for a long time we've had this situation where when things are going okay, we do a really great job, right? All of us together do a really great job for the passenger, but when things really go wrong, when there's a detour and everything is gone, that's when our systems have failed them in the past, and now we can actually support that, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, we had talked a little bit off camera about, a lot of the technology providers are saying, we have this proven in Europe, we have this proven in Asia, we need a test case here in the US to show that it could work. You're saying this is the first time in the entire world that this is being put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should elaborate on that.
No. I mean,
and I'm happy to.
No, go ahead.
You go for it. You go for it.
No, so look, these are the kinds of things. The problems in public transit are universal, right? The issues that show up and the solutions, therefore, need to be as well. And so when we look to this, there has always been an issue where buses need to be rerouted for some reason. Whether it's temporary, there's a fire or something that you need to reroute around, or it's something that takes longer. And the fact that there hasn't been anything except very custom detailed solutions to get there, you'd have to have this fully integrated place where, you did this from end to end to somehow get it to the customer. Well, now we can take advantage of the fact that Vontas is talking to the agency already, and Swiftly is talking to the agency and the customer, and we're talking to the customer, and all three of those pieces can live off of one place.
Yeah, and the piece I would add is, you mentioned, there's a lot of talk around this having existed in the industry. Most of that is in the context of an alert to the public, right? So there's some disruption, an alert gets notified telling riders, hey, there's a detour due to fire or due to construction, whatever it may be. But what's happened is you see the alert, but then you also see as a rider an ETA saying the next bus arrives in 5 minutes at a stop that if you read the alert, there's no bus ever coming because the bus is actually going to go around that stop. Right. So that's what exists today. And that's obviously not a good experience. You're going to see ETAs for stops when the bus is never coming. And when you try to plan a trip, it's actually going to route you through where the bus is no longer going.
Right.
And so what this whole collaboration does is it allowed us to create a whole new extension to the GTFS real-time data specification that writes in the new path so that riders actually see ETAs that reflect reality. If you're at a stop that's no longer being served, you will not see an arrival time. There will be no arrival time. If you are planning a trip, it will actually route you with the new route path.
Right.
And that starts with a human making an actual decision in Vontas saying, we see that there's a fire, we see that there's construction, we need to draw a detour. We then process all the information, we run it through our algorithms to more accurately adjust all the predictions, and then Transit's able to display all that to the public. And that is a first for the industry. It's really exciting, both in terms of what it means for riders now across our scale, which is massive, but also the fact that this is going to change the paradigm of how agencies can communicate with riders everywhere in the world. So I'm really excited about it.
And just to add to that, right, and in us talking to our customers and the agencies, this is also the technology experience riders are used to. And one of the critical things for transit agencies today is to expand ridership and get the choice riders back on public transit.
Right.
And that is very challenging if the technology that you provides a customer experience that lags behind what people are used to when they use other forms of travel.
Right.
So I think this partnership and the solution we're providing integrated together will help public agencies to provide the level of service and really rider experience that people are used to when they use technology to travel.
Right. With your worldwide experience, I mean, this is kind of a first step. What kind of things are you guys looking at in the future that could be kind of added on, or what's kind of the next level of a partnership like this?
So from our perspective, it's really expanding integrations, right? Where I think the entire industry is moving to open standards, IT for PT, joined APIs that we can all develop against each other, because there's lots of great solutions out in the industry between us three and other partners. And it's really important that we provide systems that can talk to each other, whether that's now, we're talking about incident responses, we can talk about all the things that happen around zero emissions, all the things that happen around reporting on performance. There is so many solutions already out there, and for us as a CAD AVL provider, the important thing is to open up the system so that we can talk to each other.
Right.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's interesting. When I joined this industry almost a decade ago, everything was in silos, right? Between vendors didn't want to communicate. When I went on site with agencies, even different departments and agencies didn't have the tools to collaborate truly as a team, which is pretty important when you're trying to deliver a great service for all the riders.
Yeah.
And the last decade, and now even in the last few years coming out of the last year coming out of the pandemic, that's all changing, right? This conversation was not possible, I don't think, a decade ago. And transit agencies are starting to unify as a team within their organizations for how do you deliver great service, but vendors are now saying, look, we can't be amazing at everything. We're unique in this industry where there are data standards, we can create open APIs, we can work together to build these best-in-class modular solutions to support the needs of agencies, and I'm really excited about this step, and I think there are dozens of ways that we can expand out of here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jonny and Peter both said it best, but like I look around the show floor and I see just an amazing amount of talent that's out here. I see a lot of really exciting companies, and some of them have the big booths with big things on top, and a lot of them have little mom and pop shops with a little stand in an 8-foot by 10-foot booth. And we have to be able to take that energy that comes out of those smaller companies and from the bigger companies together and combine them. Because if we don't, the size of the problem that we're up against here, coming out of the pandemic and coming into recovery is big. As
Right.
Peter said, we're not yet back at completely recovered, and we've got a ways to go. And we're not going to get there just by doing business as usual. And so if we can harness all this energy, and this is a great partnership, and I'm hopeful for many more with Vontas and other folks as well, and with Swiftly and other folks and us and other folks, because this really is the future of the industry.
Yeah. So Peter, anything else to add?
Yes, I just want to add that the benefit from these partnerships doesn't just come for the traveling public. We also have to make sure that the solutions that we deliver integrated also help the people running the transit systems. And one other challenge that we hear from our customers is employee hiring and retention. There's lots of turnover. We had the Great Resignation a year ago. And with new staff coming in, it's even more important that we keep these systems that we deliver intuitive and easy to use so that people aren't held up learning our tools, but they can focus on providing service to the public.
Right. Well, great. Thanks for joining me, guys, and congratulations on the partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.